There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. Guess what this is? I mean, you clicked on the link. Do you really need me to tell you it's a book haul? I'm filming it on June 6th. Yeah, I've got a huge backlog. Let's get busy. The first one is a collection of 2 novellas by a Bangladeshi writer, Syed Shamsul Haque. Haque I've seen also spelled H-A-Q-U-E, but it's spelled H-A-Q here. Blue Venom and Forbidden Incense, not incest, which is how I read it. I'm trying to read it backwards on my screen. Forbidden Incense. Blue Venom and Forbidden Incense. Translated from the Bengali by Saugata Ghosh. I bought this simply because it was a book and a writer that I'd never heard of, and it was inexpensive to buy. Both novellas bear witness to the Bangladesh 1971 war with torture cells, ash and destruction from the Pakistani army's attacks. I don't claim to know any more than that. Next, Alfred Hayes, The Girl on the Via Flaminia. I read this as an ebook, I think on Scribd, and I wanted my own copy because I really liked it. It is set in Rome, 1944. A lonely American soldier looking for a date meets a woman at a kind of like a guest house. Well, I really like this novel, and when I read the description on the back, it's not coming back to me. I wanted to reread it as soon as I finished it, and now that I've realized how little I remember of it, I remember that it was a bleak story, and I loved the way that Alfred Hayes wrote dark characters without it just being completely bleak. That's all I remember about it now. It's the only thing I've read by Alfred Hayes. Alfred Hayes, a British writer born to a Jewish family in London in 1911, died in 1985. Next, this was a birthday present from way back in January from Britta, a collection of short prose by the Austrian writer Ilse Eichinger, Bad Words, translated from the German by Uljana Wolf and Christian Haque. I can't wait to get to this. Actually, it's funny, Britta and I were going to buddy read it after she gave it to me. I said, let's buddy read it. But she can't find a collection in German that mirrors this English translation. So the buddy read was going to be really difficult for her to organize on her side to find every piece that's in here in German. She said, I don't want to read Ilse Eichinger in English. I'm sorry, and I totally get that. So, Eichinger was born in 1921, died 2016, one of the most important writers of post-war Austria. Born to a Jewish mother, she survived the Second World War in Vienna, and while her twin sister escaped with one of the very last Kindertransport to England in 1938. In various stuff I have read, British nonfiction, literary biographies, and so on, I have been getting glimpses of and become more and more curious about the Sitwells. So I finally I could get a used copy online for really cheap, and I was so delighted that it's such a nice used copy, hardcover copy of Facades, Edith, Osbert, and Sacheverell Sitwell. I don't know how to pronounce Sacheverell. Let's check that one.
Sacheverell Sitwell.
No.
Sacheverell Sitwell.
Really? I don't think so.
Sacheverell Sitwell. Sacheverell Sitwell.
Okay, well, I've heard two pronouncing it the same way. Sacheverell Sitwell. So Facades, Edith, Osbert, and Sacheverell Sitwell. A group biography, family biography by John Pearson. It's humongous. It was published in 1978. And they were siblings. And look at that. Let's look at that cover. Look at that photograph. I don't know which brother is which, but Edith is in the middle, and she was a poet and kind of a literary personality. She was very odd. I think they all were. Osbert Sitwell, I believe, was gay, and maybe Sacheverell was as well. But Osbert was also friends with Queen Mary, so he showed up in all the Queen Mary biographies I've ever read. So I have many reasons to be fascinated by the Sitwells, and so when the time is right, I'm going to get to this. Somebody called them the alternative Bloomsbury. I'm going to read you the first paragraph and a bit of chapter 1. It's fabulous. It makes me want to just keep reading. One day in 1949, when he was still a young and tender playwright, an admiring Tennessee Williams met Edith Sitwell over tea. 6 feet tall, with one of the most memorable profiles of the century, Edith was being hailed, and was behaving, as the greatest female poet of her time. That autumn, her lecture tour on modern poetry had brought her standing ovations across the length and breadth of the United States. Her reading of Facades to William Walton's music at the New York Museum of Modern Art had been a triumph. She was very grand and very Gothic, looking as if she regretted not having worn her crown that afternoon. "Was it true," asked Mr. Williams, cautiously, "that she really was of royal descent?" "Aye," she replied, drawing herself up and staring at him as Elizabeth Tudor might well have stared at some upstart commoner who doubted her paternity. "I am a Plantagenet." All right. So I guess the title of this family biography comes from one of her more famous poems. There's lots of photographs. Here is one of Osbert and Edith. Yes, I can't wait to get to this. Next, I think I heard about this on an Eric Carl Anderson book haul. I think I remember that correctly, and it is a novel from Tanzania. I believe the author now lives in the UK. Afterlives by Abdulrazak Gurnah. Gorgeous cover. It's a fabulously put together book. Came out last year, I believe, 2020, and it is set, or at least it opens, during the German colonial era in Tanzania. I haven't heard much about it other than that. Next is the new novel from Karis Davis, the Welsh writer, The Mission House. Came out early this year, late last year, 2020. I have read 2 books by Karis Davis. She was born in Wales, lived for 12 years in New York and Chicago, and now lives in Edinburgh. So, her debut novel, West, it was a buddy read and a kind of video collaboration that Doris and it was the first thing Doris and I ever collaborated on. I have very fond memories of that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And so we're going to buddy read this. I have also read her short story collection, The Redemption of Galen Pike, which I loved. So this will be the 3rd book by her, and this one is a British man running away from his demons and from the dark undercurrents of contemporary British life by taking refuge in South India. So it's probably set during the colonial period, although I don't know that for sure. This is a Blame on gunpowder fiction and plot acquisition. Émile Zola's Germinal, a new translation by Peter Collier. And this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was because we did a page 112 exchange type of collaboration, and I loved its page 112, so I promptly bought it. Don't know when I'll get around to reading it, but the first step was getting a copy. 1885. Masterpiece of working life, exposing the inhumane conditions of French miners in the 1860s. I don't think I've read any Zola in my life. This is a Blame It on Mark Nash purchase. It's, I think, the first book I ever bought because Mark liked it, because we have very different tastes, but this one might be a little bit too out there for me, which a lot of what Mark really likes is, but we do agree on some stuff, and this one, I gotta give it a try. It's called Siphonophore by Jaimie Batchan, published this year. It's a 2021 release, and it's a British novel. It's a historical novel, and I did a little show and tell with this book in one of my Zoom chats. Don't remember who with. Because it's about a Scottish man at the end of the 17th century following independent Scotland's doomed colonization attempt. And I thought that must be a historical... That's not true, but in fact, Scotland did try to colonize a country. I think at the end of the 17th century. And I believe this is also metafiction, so that's the part that scares me. I think it is metafiction. We have a map here of New Caledonia. So that's probably a map of the territory that Scotland attempted to colonize. I shall keep you closely informed. The Tokyo bookstore near where I live has a 20% off sale a couple times a year, and so I finally picked this up. I don't know if I'll ever read it, but I've got it if I ever decide to. It's a novel that everybody seems to like, but it doesn't sound like a Sean book at all. Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee. I don't like reading white writers from Africa, period. And this is about a asshole, straight white guy that is accused of sexual harassment. Yeah, it just totally sounds like a book that I'm going to hate, but, hate reading can be fun. Apparently Coetzee is a great writer, but he sounds like somebody that I'm going to pre-hate this. I'm not going to pre-bail, but I'm going into it with a very negative attitude. I don't care how well written it is. I don't like reading about these kind of men, because these kind of men, we need to push them all into the sea. Opening sentence. I promise I'm not going to bail because of this sentence, but, just as I was saying, here's the first sentence. For a man of his age, 52, divorced, he has, to his mind, solved the problem of sex rather well. All right, let's get back to the women writers. Let's get back to the talented writers, shall we? This is Cynthia Dupree Sweeney's second novel, just came out a month or two ago. Good Company. I loved her debut novel, The Nest, and so I ordered this as soon as it became available. This is about the enduring bonds of marriage and friendship. The protagonist has been, quote-unquote, happily married for more than 2 decades. Suddenly, she finds herself in emotional chaos when she finds an envelope containing her husband's wedding ring, and he claimed he lost it years and years ago. Okay, okay, so that's the opening premise. This is a Canadian novel, Consent by Annabelle Lyon. I've heard mixed reviews of it. Lindy loved it, I think. I heard about it first from her. It was on not the Booker, what's the Canadian one? The Giller Prize last year. This is about sisters. Twin sisters. One of whom is severely injured in an accident. I thought there was something very sexual about the story, but I may just be thinking of the cover and the title suggests so, but anyway. And finally, Moon Tiger by Penelope Lively. Everybody and their dog says this is the novel by Penelope Lively that you must read, and so because of that, I finally got a copy. It won the Booker Prize. Published 1987. The protagonist is dying and defiant to the last, and she wants to write a history of the world, and in the process my own history, before she tells the nurses. Opens with her childhood just after World War I through the Second World War and beyond. A haunting story of loss and desire. So, opening paragraph, which kind of takes off from the synopsis. I'm writing a history of the world, she says, and the hands of the nurse are arrested for a moment. She looks down at this old woman, this old, ill woman. Well, my goodness, the nurse says. That's quite a thing to be doing, isn't it? And then she becomes busy again. She heaves and tucks and smooths. Upsy a bit, dear, that's a good girl. Then we'll get you a cup of tea. Oh, I love that opening. That is a fabulous opening. Okay. That's my book haul for now. Thanks for watching.